In the heart of Belmont, the reclusive millionaire Thomas Alden finds a new reason to live in a young restaurant waitress, Lily. When he decides to leave his vast fortune to her, his spoiled children, James and Clara, spiral into a web of betrayals and dangerous alliances. Secrets from the past emerge, threatening to destroy the family legacy. Will the new heiress be able to maintain peace and honor Thomas's last wish? Or will the inheritance bring only more conflict and division? Discover this thrilling story of love, intrigue, and redemption. Thomas Alden, a man who had seen the best and worst of life, walked slowly along the busy sidewalk of Belmont. At 78 years old, he was a reclusive millionaire who had withdrawn from the limelight and social life. The death of his beloved wife, Helen, had left him in deep solitude, and his children, James and Clara, were more concerned with the family business than with him. That morning, Thomas felt an inexplicable need to change his routine. He donned a simple suit, different from the expensive clothes he usually wore, and decided to walk to a small restaurant he had seen from his car a few weeks earlier, Belmont's Diner. Upon entering the restaurant, the sound of the bell on the door announced his arrival. The place was simple but welcoming. The tables were well arranged with checkered tablecloths and small flower vases, creating a cozy and homely atmosphere. Lily, a young waitress with a warm smile, approached Thomas. Her smile lit up the room, and her eyes sparkled with a mix of curiosity and kindness. "Good morning, sir. What can I get for you today?" she asked, holding a notepad. Thomas looked up from the menu and observed the young woman for a moment. There was something comforting about her presence. "Good morning," he replied with a slight smile. "The daily special looks good. What is your name, young lady?" "I'm Lily. Nice to meet you," she replied, still smiling. "Pleasure, Lily. I'm Thomas," he said, feeling unexpectedly cheerful from the interaction. The young woman took the order and walked away to fetch the meal. Thomas looked around the restaurant, observing ordinary people in their daily routines. It was a stark contrast to the luxurious dinners and exclusive events he used to attend. When Lily returned with the daily special, a classic American meal of a hamburger with fries and a vanilla milkshake, she noticed that Thomas was still watching her with curiosity. "Here you go, Mr. Thomas. I hope you enjoy it." "I'm sure I will," he replied, picking up the utensils. "This place has a very pleasant atmosphere. How long have you been working here?" "It's been 2 years," said Lily, pulling up a chair and sitting next to the table. "I really like working here. The people are kind, and I feel at home." Thomas took the first bite of the hamburger, and his eyes lit up with satisfaction. "It's delicious. Have you always wanted to work in a restaurant?" "Not really," Lily said, laughing. "My dream is to be a writer. I'm saving up so I can dedicate myself to my studies and write my own book." Thomas's eyes narrowed with interest. "A writer, huh? That's fascinating. What would you like to write about?" Lily began to speak passionately about her ideas and stories, and Thomas listened attentively, finding in her a source of energy and enthusiasm he hadn't seen in anyone for a long time. They talked for nearly an hour, and Thomas left the restaurant feeling rejuvenated. In the days that followed, Thomas returned to Belmont's Diner regularly. Each visit was a new opportunity to talk with Lily and learn more about her dreams and challenges. They became friends, and Thomas realized that the young waitress was bringing back a joy he thought he had lost forever. On one of these visits, Lily asked, "Mr. Thomas, why do you come here every day? Not that I don't enjoy your company, but a man like you must have many better places to go." Thomas smiled, thoughtful. "I come here because you remind me that there are still simple and beautiful things in life, something I had forgotten." Lily was touched by Thomas's sincerity. "I'm glad to hear that. I also enjoy our conversations very much." As Thomas said goodbye to Lily that day, he couldn't help but feel that something significant was developing between them, a genuine and pure friendship that gave him a new perspective and a new reason to enjoy the days he still had left. The sound of the bell on the door announced Thomas's departure from the restaurant, and he walked home feeling lighter, more alive. He knew that this friendship was just the beginning of something greater, something that would challenge expectations and change their lives in ways neither of them could foresee. The friendship between Thomas and Lily blossomed unexpectedly. Each visit to Belmont's diner turned into a deeper conversation, where Thomas allowed himself to share his memories and feelings. There was something comforting and revitalizing about Lily's company. Her youth and joy brought a new purpose to Thomas's life. On a sunny morning, Thomas decided he wanted to spend more time with Lily outside the restaurant environment. After finishing his hamburger, he leaned on the table and said, "Lily, would you like to take a walk with me in the park? We can continue our conversation there." Lily, surprised and flattered, smiled. "Sure, Mr. Thomas. I'll ask someone to cover for me here." A few minutes later, they left the restaurant and walked towards the park. The sun shone in the blue sky, and the gentle spring breeze made the leaves dance in the trees. Thomas seemed lighter, more present than ever. "This place is beautiful," commented Lily as they walked along a flower-lined path. "Do you come here often?" "Not as much as I'd like," admitted Thomas. "After my wife passed away, I stopped visiting places we used to go together. Each place brought painful memories." Lily looked at Thomas with compassion. "I'm sorry for your loss. It must have been very hard." "It was," said Thomas, sighing. "Helen was everything to me. After her death, I felt an enormous void. My children, James and Clara, drifted away from me, focusing on the business and their own lives. We used to be a very close family, but that changed." Lily stopped and turned to Thomas. "Maybe there's a way to reconnect with them. Sometimes people get lost in their own lives and forget what's really important." Thomas smiled, touched by Lily's sincerity. "You're right, Lily. Maybe I should try. But it's hard when they seem not to care." They continued walking, and Thomas began to talk more about his past, his achievements, and his regrets. Lily listened attentively, offering words of support and encouragement. She shared her own stories of challenges and dreams, and Thomas found himself impressed by the young woman's resilience and determination. As they sat on a bench near a lake, Thomas asked, "Lily, do you think it's too late to change things with my children?" Lily thought for a moment before answering. "I believe it's never too late to try. Maybe a small gesture, an honest conversation, can make a difference. You've already taken the first step by recognizing that something needs to change." Thomas remained silent, reflecting on her words. "You are very wise for your age, Lily. I feel rejuvenated around you. It's like I have a new chance to find happiness." Lily smiled, touched. "I'm glad to hear that, Mr. Thomas. I'm here for whatever you need." Their friendship deepened with each passing day. Thomas felt a renewal in his spirit, a desire to live and resolve the conflicts that haunted him. He knew he would have to face his children and deal with their family frustrations. As they walked back to the restaurant, Thomas felt more hopeful than he had in years. Lily, with her simple and welcoming presence, had ignited a spark of hope in his heart. As they said goodbye at the restaurant, Thomas held Lily's hand for a moment. "Thank you for today, Lily. You don't know how much it meant to me." Lily smiled, her eyes shining with genuine affection. "It was a pleasure, Mr. Thomas. See you tomorrow." "See you tomorrow," he said, smiling. James Alden, Thomas's eldest son, was in his office reviewing documents when he received an unexpected call. He answered without looking at the caller ID, distracted by the numbers in front of him. "James, it's Richard," said a familiar voice on the other end of the line. "I have something you need to know." James frowned, recognizing the urgency in his friend's voice. "What is it, Richard?" "I saw your father today in the park," Richard began. "He was with a young woman. She looked very young for him." James put down the pen and leaned back in his chair. "Are you sure?" Where exactly did you see them? Yes, I saw them clearly. They were talking and seemed quite close. I thought you should know. James hung up the phone with a growing sense of concern. He knew he needed to talk to his sister, Clara, as soon as possible. In Clara's luxurious office, decorated with impeccable taste, James entered without knocking, a determined look on his face. "Clara, we have a problem," he said, closing the door behind him. Clara looked up from her computer, surprised by the interruption. "What happened?" James sighed, sitting down in front of her desk. "Richard saw Dad in the park today. He was with a young woman. She looked very young for him. We need to know more about this girl. She might be after Dad's money." Clara frowned, concerned. "Are you sure? Dad has always been very reserved since Mom died." "I'm sure," James replied. "We need to investigate, but we need to be careful. We can't cause Dad any more pain." After a brief discussion, they decided to hire a private investigator to follow Lily and find out more about her life and intentions. It was a drastic step, but they felt it was necessary to protect their father and the family fortune. That night, as Thomas prepared for bed, Clara called him. "Hi, Dad. How are you?" Thomas smiled at hearing his daughter's voice. "I'm fine, dear. And you?" "I'm fine. I've been missing you." "We both have," said Clara, trying to hide her concern. "I miss you both too," said Thomas, a tone of melancholy in his voice. "We need to see each other more often." "Definitely," Clara agreed. "We need to schedule a dinner soon." After hanging up, Clara felt a knot in her stomach. She hated the idea of investigating her father, but she felt she had no choice. Meanwhile, James contacted the private investigator, a middle-aged man with an impeccable track record of solving delicate cases. "We need to know everything about this girl. She works at a restaurant called Belmont's Diner. Her name is Lily." The investigator nodded, noting the details. "I'll start tomorrow. I'll report everything I find out." In the following days, Thomas and Lily continued to meet, their conversations deepening each time. Lily inspired him to be more open, and he felt a renewal he hadn't experienced in years. They started meeting outside the restaurant more often, exploring different parks, museums, and even quiet cafes. Meanwhile, the investigator discreetly followed Lily, documenting her movements. He noted that Lily led a simple life and worked hard at the restaurant. There were no signs of suspicious behavior or secret meetings that might suggest malicious intent. Thomas had no idea he was being followed. He was more concerned with the new emotions Lily was awakening in him. During a particularly beautiful walk, he stopped by a lake and looked at Lily. "Lily, you have brought so much joy to my life in the past few months. I don't even know how to thank you." Lily smiled, touched. "You don't need to thank me, Mr. Thomas. Your friendship is more than enough for me." As Thomas and Lily shared a moment of tranquility and connection, the investigator took photos from a distance, sending them to James and Clara. The images showed a smiling Thomas, looking younger and happier than they had seen him in years. Upon receiving the photos, James showed them to Clara. "She seems to be just an ordinary girl, but we can't be naive. We need to know more." Clara nodded, looking at the photos with a mix of relief and concern. "We need to continue the investigation, but perhaps we should try to meet Lily in person. Maybe we can better understand her intentions." As Thomas's children planned their next steps, Thomas and Lily continued to explore the depths of their friendship, unaware of the suspicions and concerns growing around them. Thomas was nervous. Sitting in the leather armchair in his office, he constantly glanced at the clock. He had called his children, James and Clara, for an urgent meeting. He knew the news he was about to reveal would cause a profound shock, but he felt he could no longer delay. The doorbell rang, and Thomas took a deep breath. He opened the door for James, who had a tense expression, and Clara, who looked worried but calm. "Dad, what's so urgent?" James asked bluntly, sitting down in front of his father's desk. Clara sat next to him, looking at Thomas with inquisitive eyes. Thomas gestured for them to wait and sat down, trying to organize his thoughts. "James, Clara, I need to tell you something important," he began, his voice firm but full of emotion. The two exchanged looks, a mix of concern and curiosity on their faces. Thomas continued, trying to stay calm. "I've decided to change my will," Thomas announced. "I want Lily to be the main beneficiary." Silence fell over the room like an unbearable weight. James was the first to react, standing up abruptly, his expression of disbelief turning into fury. "This is insane, Dad! She's clearly manipulating you!" he exclaimed, his raised voice echoing off the walls of the office. Clara, more restrained but equally shocked, stared intently at her father. "Dad, are you sure about this? We're your family. We've always been by your side." Thomas felt his heart tighten, but remained firm in his decision. "Lily brought joy to my life when I needed it most. She gave me a new reason to live. My decision is made." James began pacing back and forth, trying to control his anger. "This doesn't make sense. We should be the heirs. We're your blood family." Clara, trying to calm the situation, placed a hand on James's shoulder. "Calm down, James. Let's talk this through calmly." Thomas took a deep breath, trying to explain his reasons. "I understand this is hard to accept, but I need you to trust me. Lily is not manipulating me. She has been a true friend, someone who understands and supports me." James stopped pacing and looked directly at his father. "I can't accept this. It seems like she's taking advantage of your vulnerability. We need to protect you, Dad." Clara nodded slowly, trying to process everything. "Dad, we only want what's best for you. But this decision, it's hard to understand." Thomas felt a deep sadness at his children's reaction, but knew he was doing the right thing for himself. "I appreciate your concern, but Lily is not what you think. She is honest and genuine." James shook his head, still incredulous. "We'll need time to digest this, but don't think we'll accept it easily." Clara looked at her father with tear-filled eyes. "We love you, Dad. We want you to be happy, but we need to understand this decision better." Thomas nodded, understanding the difficulty of the situation. "I know this is a shock, but I hope over time you can see what I see in Lily." The meeting ended with a heavy silence. James and Clara left the office with a mix of frustration and pain. Thomas remained seated, feeling the weight of the decision he had made. As James and Clara walked down the hallway, James whispered to his sister, "We need to do something. We can't let this happen." Clara nodded, worried. "We'll think of a way to deal with this. Maybe we can talk to Lily directly." The plot was thickening, and family tensions were on the verge of exploding. Thomas, in his quest for happiness and renewal, faced fierce resistance from his children, who were determined to protect what they believed to be their rightful inheritance. The days following Thomas's revelation were tense. James and Clara were determined to protect the family fortune, firmly believing that Lily was manipulating their father. The atmosphere in the Alden mansion was charged with suspicion and distrust. James, unable to contain his anger, decided to confront Lily directly. He found her at Belmont's diner during one of his father's regular visits. Peering through the window, he saw Thomas and Lily chatting animatedly. Determined, he entered the restaurant and got straight to the point. "Lily, I need to talk to you," James said, his voice cold and calculated. He ignored the curious looks of the other customers and walked to the table where Thomas and Lily were seated. Lily looked up, surprised to see James. "Of course, James. What do you want to talk about?" James approached, his expression hardened. "What do you really want, Lily? Are you after my father's money?" Thomas was shocked by James's aggressive approach. "James, stop it! Lily hasn't done anything wrong." Lily, hurt by the accusation, responded calmly. "I care about your father. He means a lot to me. I'm not after his money. James, his face reddened with anger, retorted, "Hard to believe, considering he decided to change the will to favor you. Seems like a big coincidence, don't you think?" Clara, who had followed James discreetly, entered the restaurant and approached the table. "James, calm down. We need to resolve this calmly." Thomas, trying to maintain composure, looked at his children with dismay. "You two are acting irrationally. Lily has been a true friend, someone who understands and supports me." James, not willing to back down, continued, "Dad, we can't accept this. It looks like she's taking advantage of your vulnerability. We need to protect you." Clara, trying to be the voice of reason, addressed Lily. "Lily, understand that our concern is for our father's well-being. All of this seems very sudden." Lily looked at Clara, her eyes full of sincerity. "I understand your concern, Clara, but I'm not here because of the money. I'm here because I care about your father." Thomas, feeling the need to intervene more firmly, raised his voice. "Enough! Lily hasn't done anything wrong. If you can't accept my decision, that's your problem." At the moment Thomas raised his voice, he felt a sharp pain in his chest. His hand instinctively went to his heart, and he staggered, losing his balance. "Dad!" Clara shouted, running to catch him before he fell. The restaurant fell silent, the customers watching in shock. James rushed to his father's side, his anger momentarily replaced by concern. "Dad, are you okay?" Thomas tried to speak, but the pain was too intense. He could barely breathe, and his vision began to darken. "Someone call an ambulance!" Lily shouted, her voice full of desperation. Within minutes, paramedics arrived and began attending to Thomas, placing him on a stretcher and quickly transporting him to the ambulance. Lily, James, and Clara followed by car, their faces pale and hands trembling with anxiety. At the hospital, Thomas was taken immediately to the emergency room. His children and Lily waited outside, the heavy silence between them. The previous tension was momentarily forgotten, replaced by fear and uncertainty. James paced back and forth, unable to hide his anxiety. "This is my fault," he murmured. "I pushed him too hard." Clara, trying to stay calm, held her brother's hand. "James, don't think like that. Dad is strong. He'll get through this." Lily, sitting on one of the benches, was visibly shaken. "Thomas is an amazing man. He'll pull through." Finally, a doctor emerged from the emergency room, looking at the three with a serious expression. "Your father had a heart attack. We managed to stabilize him, but he will need intensive care and absolute rest." James and Clara nodded, their expressions a mix of relief and concern. "Can we see him?" Clara asked. The doctor nodded. "Yes, but only for a few minutes. He needs to rest." When they entered the room, they saw Thomas lying in bed, pale but conscious. He smiled weakly upon seeing his children and Lily. "I'm sorry for scaring you." James approached, holding his father's hand. "Dad, we're the ones who are sorry. We were unfair to you." Clara nodded, tears in her eyes. "We want you to be well. We'll work this out together." Lily, her eyes filled with tears, smiled at Thomas. "I'm here for you, Thomas. I'm not going anywhere." After the scare in the hospital, Thomas was instructed to rest and avoid any kind of stress. However, the tension between his children and Lily was far from resolved. James and Clara, still suspicious of Lily's intentions, decided to intensify their investigation into her past. The private investigator they had hired finally brought revealing information. Sitting in James's office, he handed over a detailed dossier. "Lily has a complicated past," the investigator began, his voice calm and professional. "She was involved in a fraud case years ago. She worked at a small company that was shut down for illegal activities. She was accused, but the case was dismissed due to lack of evidence." James opened the dossier and examined the documents, feeling a mix of relief and anger. "We have something against her," he said, turning to Clara. We can use this to push her away from our father." Clara, however, hesitated. "But what if this hurts Dad even more? He trusts Lily. If we reveal this, he might feel betrayed all over again." James frowned, considering his sister's words. "We need to think about how to approach this. Maybe we don't need to tell him everything at once. We can use this information to pressure her to back off." As they discussed their options, Clara picked up an old box in the corner of the office. "What's this?" James asked. "It's a box of Dad's old letters. Maybe there's something here that can help us understand what he's thinking." They began to leaf through the letters, reading fragments of Thomas's past. Among the correspondence, they found letters from a woman named Margaret. The letters were passionate and intimate, revealing an extramarital affair Thomas had while still married to Helen. James was stunned. This could change everything. If Dad had an affair in the past, he might be repeating the same mistakes now. Clara, though shocked, was more concerned about the emotional repercussions. "James, this is serious. We can't just throw this in Dad's face. He's already fragile." James, stubborn, didn't want to back down. "We need to think strategically. If we show Lily that we know about her past, we can make her back off. And if necessary, we can use the letters to show Dad that he's making the same mistakes." As they planned their next steps, Thomas, in his convalescence, missed his conversations with Lily. In the hospital, he reflected on his life and the choices he had made. He knew his children were just trying to protect him, but he felt they were wrong about Lily. Lily, for her part, was anguished by the situation. She knew Thomas's children didn't trust her and felt the weight of the responsibility to prove her intentions. She decided to visit Thomas in the hospital, bringing a bouquet of flowers and a hopeful smile. "Thomas, how are you feeling?" she asked, entering the hospital room. Thomas smiled upon seeing her. "Better now that you're here, Lily. I'm sorry for what happened at the restaurant. My children are wrong about you." Lily sat by his bedside, holding his hand. "Thomas, I'm here for you, but we need to resolve this situation with your children. I don't want you to be stressed because of me." Thomas squeezed her hand, his eyes full of determination. "We'll resolve this together. They need to understand that my decision is final." Meanwhile, James and Clara continued to debate their options. The tension grew as they realized the complexity of the situation. Revealing Lily's secrets could push her away, but it also risked further alienating their father. And Margaret's letters were a ticking time bomb, something that could destroy Thomas's trust forever. James, ever pragmatic, decided to act. "Let's talk to Lily directly. We need to make her understand that we know about her past. Maybe that will make her back off." Clara, though reluctant, agreed. "But we need to be careful, James. We can't destroy Dad in the process." As the siblings headed to the hospital, the atmosphere was charged with tension. They knew the confrontation with Lily would be decisive. Upon arriving at Thomas's room, they found Lily by his bedside, holding their father's hand. James took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Lily, we need to talk." Lily stood up, feeling the hostility in the air. "About what?" James, holding the dossier, said firmly. "About your past. We know all about the fraud case." Thomas, who had been silent until then, looked at his children with a mix of surprise and disappointment. "What are you doing?" Clara, trying to mediate the situation, spoke softly. "Dad, we just want to protect you." The silence that followed was heavy and tense. The revelations were on the verge of exploding, and everyone knew that nothing would be the same after this conversation. The tension that hung over the Alden family after the hospital confrontation continued to grow. Lily, shaken by the accusations, began avoiding James and Clara, focusing on supporting Thomas during his recovery. Thomas, for his part, was increasingly determined to protect Lily and reaffirm his decision about the will. James, furious and desperate, decided to resort to an unexpected alliance. He knew his uncle Richard, Thomas's younger brother, had always harbored ambitions to take control of the family business. Richard had been sidelined by Thomas many years ago due to his questionable practices, but James saw him as a powerful ally against Lily. On a rainy night, James drove to Richard's house. The older man received him with a sly smile, clearly pleased with the unexpected visit. "James, what a surprise. What brings you here?" James entered, wasting no time on formalities. "We need to talk, Uncle Richard. It's about Lily." Richard offered James a drink and settled into a luxurious armchair. "I'm listening. What do you have in mind?" James hesitated for a moment, aware that he was taking a risk. "Lily is manipulating my father. He changed the will to make her the main beneficiary. We need all the help we can get to get her out of the way." Richard smiled, his gaze cold and calculating. "James, you know I've always wanted the best for our family. If you need my help, you have it, but you must trust me completely." James, desperate, nodded. "We need to stop her from destroying our family. I'm willing to do whatever it takes." Meanwhile, Clara began to notice her brother's intentions. She observed how James spent more and more time away, clearly planning something in secret. One night, she decided to confront him. "James, can I talk to you?" Clara asked, entering her brother's office. James looked at her, trying to hide his irritation. "Sure, Clara. What is it?" Clara approached, her eyes fixed on James's. "Are you allying with our Uncle Richard? He's always wanted to destroy our family." James frowned, surprised by his sister's astuteness. "We need all the help we can get. Lily is robbing us. We can't let this happen." Clara shook her head, disappointed. "James, you know Richard has never been trustworthy. He might be using you for his own ends." James stood up, his patience running out. "We have no choice, Clara. We need someone with power and influence, and Richard has that." Clara left the office, feeling betrayed and frustrated. She knew she needed to act, but in a different way. She decided to talk directly to Lily. The next morning, Clara found Lily at the hospital, bringing flowers for Thomas. When they had a moment alone, Clara approached. "Lily, can we talk?" Lily looked at Clara, surprised. "Of course, Clara. About what?" Clara took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Maybe we can resolve this together. I'm tired of all this fighting." Lily was intrigued. "What do you suggest?" "We need to find a way to show Dad that we're all on the same side," Clara said. "Maybe if we work together, we can ease the tensions and resolve this peacefully." Lily nodded, feeling a glimmer of hope. "I also want the best for Thomas. I'm willing to try." Meanwhile, James and Richard frequently met, planning the best way to expose Lily. Richard, always manipulative, fueled James's anger and distrust, ensuring he stayed focused on their goal. "James, together we can get this girl out of the picture, but you must trust me," Richard said, his voice smooth and persuasive. James, desperate for a solution, agreed. "I trust you, Uncle. Let's end this." The alliances formed revealed betrayals and manipulations that further complicated the conflict. Clara and Lily, trying a conciliatory approach, faced the stubborn resistance of James and Richard's nefarious influence. The situation grew increasingly tense, setting the stage for an inevitable confrontation. Thomas Alden was increasingly fragile. His time in the hospital had taken its toll, and he knew his days were numbered. From his bed, he saw the growing tension between his children and Lily, and it caused him deep sadness. He decided he needed to act before it was too late. Thomas called James and Clara for a meeting beside his bed. His pale face and labored breathing indicated how weakened he was. When his children entered the room, Lily was already sitting beside him, holding his hand. "James, Clara," Thomas began, his voice weak but firm. "I know my decisions have been difficult for you, but Lily brought light into my life. She gave me a reason to continue, a joy I thought I had lost forever. James and Clara exchanged glances, still reluctant to accept Lily's presence. Thomas took a deep breath, gathering strength to continue. "There are things you don't know about my past," he said, his eyes welling up with tears. "I made mistakes. I had an extramarital affair while your mother was alive. A woman named Margaret. These secrets haunted me for years." James and Clara were shocked by the revelation. They had always seen their father as a man of principles, and this new information was difficult to process. "I never had the courage to tell your mother," Thomas continued, "and I never asked for her forgiveness. When she died, I closed myself off in my own world, unable to deal with the guilt and shame." He looked at Lily, who had tears streaming down her face. "Lily helped me find peace. She is not just some young woman trying to take advantage of me. She brought joy and solace to my final days." Lily, visibly emotional, spoke with a choked voice. "All I wanted was to bring him happiness. Thomas gave me a chance to show that I can be more than my past. I never wanted to cause discord between you." Thomas squeezed Lily's hand and looked at his children. "Please try to understand each other. I don't want my death to destroy our family. I want you to find peace, as I have." James and Clara felt tears begin to fall. The weight of their father's words and Lily's sincerity deeply affected them. Anger and distrust began to dissolve, replaced by a deeper understanding of the complexities of life and the difficult decisions Thomas had made. "Father," Clara began, her voice trembling, "we didn't know. We wanted to protect you, but maybe we went about it the wrong way." James nodded, still processing the revelations. "Dad, I just wanted the best for you. But if Lily has brought you peace, then we need to respect that." Thomas smiled weakly, satisfied to see a change in his children's attitudes. "That's all I ask, that you find a way to live in harmony, even after I'm gone." Lily, with tears in her eyes, looked at James and Clara. "I'm here to help in any way I can. I want everyone to find peace, not just Thomas." The siblings exchanged a glance, recognizing Lily's sincerity. There was still much to be resolved, but this moment of vulnerability and truth opened a door to reconciliation. Thomas, relieved, closed his eyes and rested. He knew he had planted the seed of reconciliation in his children. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, there was hope. Thomas Alden's funeral was a solemn event, marked by deep sadness and reflection. Friends, family, and associates attended to pay their last respects to a man who had impacted so many lives. However, behind the mourning, tension about the future of the Alden Empire began to intensify. After the funeral, James, Clara, and Lily gathered in the family lawyer's office for the reading of the will. The atmosphere was thick with expectation and uncertainty. The lawyer, an elderly man with gray hair, opened the sealed envelope and began to read. "I, Thomas Alden, leave the majority of my fortune to Lily Thompson, on the condition that she takes care of my family and uses the resources for the welfare of the community." James, visibly irritated, interrupted. "This isn't fair. She's not part of our family." Clara placed a hand on James's arm, trying to calm him. "James, we need to honor Dad's wishes. Let's find a solution that works for everyone." The lawyer continued reading. "To my children, James and Clara, I leave a significant amount of money, as well as properties and stocks that, combined, total $300 million. The remainder of my fortune, valued at approximately $500 million, will be managed by Lily Thompson." Lily, sitting next to Clara, was visibly emotional. "I never wanted to cause discord. I want to help all of you." James stood up, still agitated. "This is ridiculous. How can we trust her to manage our family's legacy?" Clara, more conciliatory, responded, "James, we need to respect Dad's last wish. He trusted Lily, and we should too." Lily took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. I understand your concerns. I'm willing to work with you to ensure that Thomas's legacy is honored." In the days that followed, the tension remained high. James, unable to accept his father's decision, continued to meet secretly with his uncle Richard. Richard, ever the manipulator, saw an opportunity to exploit the situation. "James, together we can contest the will," Richard suggested. "We can argue that your father was being manipulated." James, still frustrated, considered the idea. "But what about Clara? She won't agree to this." Richard smiled, cunning. "Leave Clara to me. She's easier to convince than you think." Meanwhile, Clara tried to find a balance. She began spending more time with Lily, trying to understand her true intentions. The two women started to develop a genuine friendship, united by their love for Thomas and the desire to honor his legacy. Lily, using her new position and resources, decided not to involve herself directly in the family business. Instead, she used the money to help the Belmont community, funding schools, hospitals, and social support programs. Besides her philanthropic activities, Lily published several books, becoming a respected author. She no longer needed to worry about money, but she wrote out of pure passion and personal satisfaction. James, on the other hand, faced a moral dilemma. The alliance with Richard began to weigh on his conscience, especially as he saw the positive impact Lily was having on the community. Clara, noticing her brother's internal struggle, tried to convince him to abandon the contestation plans. "James, look at what Lily is doing. She's really helping people. Dad knew what he was doing," Clara said, trying to appeal to her brother's more rational side. Finally, James decided to confront Richard. "Uncle, I can't go on with this. What we're doing is wrong. Lily is fulfilling Dad's wish." Richard, irritated by James's change of heart, tried to persuade him. "James, don't be a fool. You have the right to fight for what's yours." But James, determined, responded, "What's mine is the responsibility to honor my father, and that means supporting Lily and Clara." Richard, seeing that he had lost, backed off, leaving James and Clara to resolve things on their own. Over time, James and Clara found a way to work together with Lily. They decided to create a family council to manage the business, ensuring that everyone had a say in important decisions. Lily, true to her promise, focused her efforts on philanthropy and writing, leaving the business details to James and Clara. Clara dedicated herself to expanding the family business, bringing innovation and sustainability to the Alden empire. James, finally at peace with his father's decision, found a new purpose working alongside his sister and Lily, seeing firsthand the positive impact they were making. Thomas Alden's legacy, though marked by conflicts and challenges, thrived in the hands of those he left behind. The family, now united by a common purpose, continued to honor Thomas's memory, working together for a better future. Did you enjoy the story of millionaire Thomas Alden and his unexpected heiress Lily? We want to hear your opinion. What did you think of Thomas's decision to leave his fortune to Lily? Do you think his children, James and Clara, were right to distrust her? Leave your comment below and share your thoughts. Don't forget to like if you enjoyed the story, subscribe to the channel for more exciting stories, and share this video with your friends. Your participation is very important to us. Now, see this story. A drunk man crashes his wife's funeral and makes a shocking revelation that, along with the pain of loss, wounds his heart in an irreparable way. Click on the video that is appearing on your screen now, and I'll see you there in a few seconds.